This talk is about how Sheerpower deals with memory. And when I say memory, I'm talking about address space. I'm not talking about RAM, the random access memory that's on the circuit board and stuff in your computer. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about address space. Sheerpower assumes that address space is plentiful, and so it assumes that's the case. It also assumes that allocating address space is expensive in terms of CPU time, and it assumes that deallocating address space is expensive in terms of CPU time. Okay? Now, neither of those things take too long, but they take a lot longer than not doing it at all. So Sheerpower tries to avoid allocating address space, memory, and tries to avoid deallocating it as much as it possibly can. So here we have $A equals SAM, $B equal $A, C equal $B. In Sheerpower, this is three different instances of the word SAM, but we know that $A, B, and C are actually identical strings because of what's called a string ID. You can see 689, 689, and 689. They're the same string, but each variable contains its own copy. We don't use pointers because we don't garbage collect. Why don't we garbage collect? Because garbage collecting is slow, really slow. And you'll see hundreds and hundreds of videos on how garbage collectors work in JavaScript and Java and in Python and methods they try to use to make it faster. Well, the way that we make it faster is that we don't do it, because not doing something can be really fast. All right, so we have this string here, 3 characters long, 3, 3, and 3. And we see it says SAM, SAM, SAM. Okay, good. The allocation's 35, though. We've actually made more space in $A than we needed, namely 35 characters worth. Our next step is we're going to make a much larger string here. That's going to cause $A to have to expand its allocation. The same with $B, because this string is way over 35 characters. I think it's 40. So if we look, yeah, $A is 40 characters long. So now the allocation's been bumped up to 72. To handle this 40 character thing, because it was more than 35, Sheerpower had to allocate new address space for $A. That was 72 characters long. It then copied into it this long phrase. This is a test with much larger string. Right? And it over allocated again at 72. So the next thing the code does is it says $A equals smaller string, $B equal very small. In most languages, what this would cause is that this would cause a new allocation for $A of this many characters and a new allocation for $B of this many characters, and then copying smaller string into $A, the newly allocated string, and copying $B into it. In Sheerpower, we don't do that. Even though our new length is 14 for $A, our allocation stays the same. It's still at 72 because we used the address space, the memory, where $A before had this as a test. We used that very same chunk of memory to now put in smaller string. We didn't make a new string. Okay? Since we didn't make a new string, it means we didn't have to deallocate the old string, and we didn't have to allocate a new string. So we avoided a allocation of a new string and the deallocation of the old string. And the same with $B. It avoided, because it's only 10 characters long, same thing. It was able to stuff these 10 characters into this allocation of 72 that we had done way up here. So we allocated 72 way up here, even though we didn't need it. And now when we make it smaller string, we're just dumping it into the very same place that we originally had this text. So it's the same memory location. And by doing that, Sheerpower avoids having to do garbage collection. It does mean that we are wasting some memory, but remember, the theory on Sheerpower is that memory is cheap, really, really inexpensive. Most computers come with 4 to 16 gigabytes now. As a matter of fact, Microsoft has announced that for new computers, 16 gigabytes is the minimum that they suggest. So address space is cheap. And there you go.